In today's video, I'll be turning your aim from this
5 minutes left.
to this. Are you slow? Are these kids slow? If you want to get better at the game, there's 3 main pillars you have to focus on: positioning, mechanics, and game sense. So let's go over the first pillar of which being positioning. Now, most people think that they lose gunfights because of mechanics, when in reality, 90% of the reason most people are actually losing gunfights is because of positioning. There's many ways you can position yourself incorrectly. You could be at the wrong side of a doorway. You could be hiding behind cover incorrectly. You could be swinging incorrectly. You could be at the wrong level of height. It doesn't matter. Positioning is very complicated. So to make this easier for you, let's go over the first part of positioning, which is how to hold angles correctly. Holding angles is actually pretty complicated. You have to think about if you're holding it from too close to the door or too far away from the door. Are you leaning to the right? Are you leaning to the left when you peek? Are you on the right side of the door? Are you on the left side of the door? There's just a lot to think about here. So I'll give you a golden rule for each. If somebody is swinging from your right, which means they're going right to left, then you want to be on the left side, peeking right. That's like a word jumble of words, but let me simplify it for you. If they are swinging to the left, you want to be peeking from the right. So when people push out of VIP, they're swinging the right. So obviously I would want to be leaning to the left. This allows me to get a tight pixel onto the door that they're swinging, and when they swing out, I can choose how much of an angle I want to expose myself to and how much a gunfight I want to have to be able to control that gunfight. Now, I'm sure you've heard the term swing or be swung. That doesn't mean that you need to take every single gunfight swinging, but it means that any time that you are being swung by somebody, you also need to swing out as they're swinging so that you don't let them get swinger's advantage and you both get swinger's advantage. So if they're swinging from the left to the right and I'm holding the angle leaning left, I can choose just how much of a gunfight and just how much I want to swing and how much of them I get to see and how much of them they get to see of me. Whereas if I was on the left right here and they swung out, I would have to react to their swing and I couldn't control the angle at all. The door and the hallway would be just as much of exposed if I were to lean even more to the left or more to the right. So always lean the opposite way of where they're swinging. He's swinging to the right, so I'm leaning to the left. On the staircase example, he's swinging to the left, so I'm leaning to the right. It's very simple. Not only that, but do you hold from close on a doorway or do you hold from far away? To be honest, in most scenarios, honestly all scenarios, the farther you are away from whatever you're swinging, the better. If you're really up close like this, they're going to be able to see your shoulder. Let's put a clone down for an example. In Rainbow Six Siege, the perspective or what you see is actually in the middle of your eyes, meaning that as long as the middle of the eyes of somebody is covered by the doorway, they won't be able to see me. But as you can see, even though their eyes can't see me, I can still see half of their entire body because they're super just close to the door. If they were to, however, back up off the angle like this, and I were to stand in the exact same position, it's either their entire body is seeing me, which means they can see me, or if I'm on the staircase, I can't see them at all. So they're choosing how much of a gunfight to have, just like with the leaning example earlier. So you always want to back up off of what you're swinging. Now, this is a huge reason that people are bad at positioning, but an even more common reason is that you aren't utilizing cover as much as you should. In Rainbow Six Siege, you should only be exposed to one angle at a time, which is the angle that you're currently holding. At no point should you be dying to people that you can't see that are next to or behind you. If you're constantly dying to people that you aren't even fighting, this is actually your biggest mistake and what's probably holding you back. For example, if I'm playing in kitchen, standing right here would be a terrible mistake. Yes, I'm able to get a pixel onto the door, which is great for me, but I'm also exposed to anybody on the service door or anybody on the bathroom. So this is really bad. Instead, find an angle where you're only exposed to what you're holding. So me just backing up, playing behind this reinforcement and making sure nobody in bathroom can see me. Now the only place that people can shoot me from is the doorway. So every single gunfight that you take, you need to make sure that you're only exposed to one angle so that you can never get shot from behind and third-partied. Now the final positioning error that you could be making is that you aren't swinging at the correct level. Whether it be standing, crouched, or prone, how should you be swinging or holding angles? Well, the answer is about 80% of the time, you should be standing. When you watch good content creators play the game, I want you to watch how little they take gunfights crouched. They still do it from time to time, but it's a lot less than you might think. There's many reasons for this. The first of which is that crouching slows you down. The amount of time it takes to walk to those bottles over there is this amount of time. As you can see by the timer on screen, that's how much it takes. But if I were to try it crouched, this is how long it would take. Now that took way longer than the first example. Editor, if you can speed that up as well, that'd be great. Not only does it slow you down over long distances, but it also slows you down when you're swinging people. So if I'm swinging somebody like this is much quicker than swinging somebody like this. Crouching when you're swinging only gives your enemies more time to react, putting you at a disadvantage. It also makes noise. which allows good enemies to know that you're crouched or crouching and take your head off because of it. So for the most part, you want to be standing. There's 2 times though that crouching actually makes more sense. One, when you're doing it behind cover, like a desk or in a zombie barricade. The second time that crouching makes sense is when you've been quick peeked. Let's say, for example, somebody's behind this bomb chassis and they're quick peeking me because I'm holding an angle onto the doorway, or vice versa, it doesn't really matter. If they quick peek me, I know that they know that I'm standing. So the next time they quick peek, they're going to pre-fire me standing level. If I see them quick peek me, all I have to do to counter this is crouch. Then they're gonna pre-fire right above my head and completely miss, whereas I can pre-fire them and hit them every single time. Now that we've talked about when you should crouch and stand, when should you go prone? To be honest, never. The only time it makes sense is if you have some wild angle you need to be prone for. Like this insane prone angle for the top floor of cafe if you're holding piano. But with it out of the way, that wraps up the positioning part of how to win gunfights and rank up. Next up, let's talk about the next pillar of how to get better, and that is mechanics. Out of everything I talk about on my list, mechanics are arguably the least important out of the 3 pillars. And if you think you're bad because you have bad mechanics, you don't know the actual issues you have, unfortunately. Sure, having good aim is nice, but it should be seen as something that you fall back on if your positioning and game sense don't work out for you. Don't believe me? Well, on my Twitch, I've been challenging myself to make it to champion on console. Keep in mind that my aim with the controller is horrible. In silver lobbies, I have the worst aim out of everyone there, yet I have a positive KD and win rate and made it to Emerald with a 1.3 KD with 0 console ranked history. This proves that aim doesn't mean anything if you can just educate yourself. But if you still want to have better aim, well, fine. Here's how to do it. The biggest tip I can give you if you want to win more gunfights isn't some new or different type of quick peeking or to copy somebody else's sensitivity. No, it's something very, very simple that I talk about all the time and is literally just crosshair placement. I think if you want to get a single tip to get your mechanics better instantaneously that actually has the most amount of impact on your aim and whether you win gunfights, crosshair placement is the best tip anybody can ever give you. It seems like it's for new players, beginner players, and you might think that you already have good crosshair placement, but I promise you, you don't. The average player, meaning gold players usually, have a headshot percentage of about 45 to 50% on a good day, meaning that every single gunfight that you take, you have half or less than half of a chance of actually headshotting the person that you're shooting at. That is bad. Even really good players, we're talking Bolos and Spoit, peak at around an 80% headshot rate, more realistically about a 70% shot, so they're not even hitting all the heads. So no matter how good you are watching this video, you are always able to make your crosshair placement better. What is making your crosshair placement better actually do for you? Well, it increases the chance that you're gonna hit a headshot. If you hit a headshot, that is an instant kill. Getting instant kills is great because if your crosshair placement is good, that means your first shot accuracy is good. So if you have bad aim, but you hit a headshot, it doesn't matter where all of your other bullets go if you have bad aim, because your first shot is gonna hit out of the thousands that you're gonna miss. This is how I had a 1.3 KD on my first season as console when I had the worst aim in every single lobby I was playing in. My aim might have been terrible, but because I just held tight angles and hit the head on the first bullet, sure, I'd whiff all my shots, but the first or last bullet would always be a headshot because I just had good crosshair placements. So you could have the worst aim in the entire world, but as long as you have good crosshair placement, it doesn't really matter most of the time. Something else that you also need to know about having good mechanics is understanding flicks. Contrary to what you might think, flicking isn't just one motion where you immediately lock onto your target. There are actually 2 parts of a flick. The macro flick, which is the big motion you take to get to your target, and the micro flick, which is the slight little readjustment to get to your target at a small level. So let's say I want to flick to this ball here. Most of the time, I'm not going to be able to do what I just did, which is to instantaneously flick to the target. Most times, people will either under flick or they'll over flick, and then in that same motion, they'll readjust and actually hit the target. So when you look at really good players like Spoits or even Tens in Valorant, it might seem like they're just instantaneously hitting the targets, but they're not. They're getting very, very close most of the time and just readjusting. You can't see this because all they've done is gotten faster at it, but if you slow down their aiming footage, most of the time it is a macro flick, then a micro readjustment flick. So if you want to get better at flicking, which is the most important mechanic in Siege, then you need to know which part you suck at. I am great at macro flicks, but I fucking suck at micro flicks. So I know that I need to personally work on, wow, I actually just hit that. So I know that I really need to work on my micro flicks because sometimes I'll just completely miss them. On console, it's the complete opposite. My micro flicks are fine, but a lot of the times I'll literally try to hit this ball over here and end up all the way over there. So if you can figure out which part of your flick you're bad at, you can make your flicks a lot better instead of just spraying and praying and hoping that you hit a target. Because a lot of the times You won't be able to do that. And to wrap up the mechanics part of the video, we have my final tip, which is about recoil control. Recoil control is probably the least important thing when it comes to mechanics, because like I said, if you have good crosshair placement, usually you're going to be hitting the first bullet anyways, so it doesn't matter if you can't control the recoil because they'll already be dead by the time that the rest of the bullets come out of your gun, right? But in case that, you know, that's not really something that you can rely on, making sure that you can control recoil so that if your first bullet misses, you can still stay on the target and kill them is pretty essential to have. You can do this by running attachments on weapons that need it, or by coming to this lane in the shooting range, looking at the recoil pattern like this. Okay, I see that Ash's R4C goes up and to the right, so I'm gonna aim down and to the left, and then trying it out. And from there, you can get recoil control very, very easily, which will make your mechanics very nice. But now that we've gone over the mechanical part of how to get better, let's talk about arguably the hardest part about getting better at Rainbow Six Siege, which is improving your game sense. Improving your game sense isn't necessarily about having knowledge, but it's about how you use that knowledge and implement it on your own. And to be honest, the only way you can have better game sense is to play the game more. That's why this is the hardest to learn. If you die to a random shield in elbow of Oregon 30 times, you'll have that sixth sense of having a feeling that they might do that the next time you go there, hence the name game sense. It's almost a sixth sense of what the enemies might do. So naturally, the only way to improve game sense is to play the game more. If you are really, really passionate about playing the game though, you can do what I did to go from my hard stuck gold to being diamond 2 in just 2 seasons of implementing this one tip. This one tip being to study players that are better than you. And I don't mean to just watch them, I mean to study them. There's a difference. It's one thing to watch a player be great, but it's another to ask yourself why you think they're great and to break down why they do the things that they do. If you can understand that, you will have much better game sense. And if you can implement everything I've said in this video, you'll be much better at the game in general. But with that out of the way, my name's Alka. Check out this next video, and I hope we'll see you there. Later.